Chapter 1. The Forbidden Journey. Gwen was finally home. The house stood quiet around her, as if the walls themselves were sighing in relief that she, after several brutal weeks of fighting monsters, saving civilians, and solving problems no one else could handle, had taken a moment to breathe. She sank into the sofa, her shoulders dropping heavily. She loved being a hero, but her body was exhausted, her magic worn down to the very edge. She wanted only one thing: a vacation. Just a few days with no screaming, no alarms, no one calling her Gwen Tennyson, the girl who saves everyone. But her bank account practically laughed at her every time she checked it. No vacation, no plane ticket, just reality. Her gaze drifted to her bookshelf. There was a warm little spark in her chest, the kind she always felt when her thoughts fell on magic. Maybe there was another way? Gwen rose, walked over to one of the heavy old books, the one with deep cracks in the leather cover and pages that smelled of dust, fire, and distant worlds. She opened it and let her fingers glide down the runes as her eyes scanned the lines for something useful. And then she found it. A teleportation spell. Simple. Direct. Travel to any country just by focusing on the place and reciting the words. Her heart gave a small jump. This could work. A smile spread across her lips, growing as if she could already feel the freedom beneath her feet. She stood up straight, placed the book before her, and let her mind form a clear image. Germany. Wide forests, old towns, people she didn't know. Freedom. She began to recite the words. Magic gathered along her skin like rising warmth, first tingling, then like a soft wave climbing from her feet all the way to her head. The air around her flickered, as if the world briefly lost its breath. And then she vanished. No sensation of falling. No pain. Just a glide. When she opened her eyes, standing in the middle of silence, she drew in a sharp breath. There was green. Everywhere. But not forest green. Not plants. She blinked. Thread? Fabric? Gigantic, endless folds of green stretching in every direction. No houses. No roads. No people. Only a massive, uneven surface spreading out like a soft, living plain. Confused, didn't even begin to describe it. A prickling crawled down her spine as the thought hit her. Did I make a mistake? Or is the world wrong? Something under her shoe gave off an almost inaudible crunch. There was something tiny down there. And Gwen felt a first faint pull of a strange sensation deep in her stomach. Something was about to change. Chapter 2. The Woman Who Ignited the Shadow. Gwen stood still for a moment as the wind brushed across her cheeks. She tried to orient herself, turning her body slightly, taking a few careful steps forward, each movement making the ground answer with a deep, resonant tremor, as if the world itself shivered nervously beneath her. She didn't know it yet. She didn't feel the microscopic vibrations far below her shoes. She still believed the teleportation had simply dropped her in some strange open field. But the truth was far more catastrophic. 5 minutes before her arrival, a small, peaceful German town had been living through an ordinary day. People were shopping. Children ran through the streets. A bus slowed at the central square. No one had the slightest idea that the sky would soon be swallowed by a green shadow, vast, incomprehensible, impossible. When Gwen materialized, she was already gigantic. The magic had done it without her knowing, stretching her body to a size no one in her world had ever witnessed. She appeared exactly where the town had stood. In a single blink, the town's centre vanished beneath her shoe, reduced to an innocent, soft crunch she assumed was gravel or packed dirt. Everything else became dust. Those who had been outside the town limits froze in raw disbelief. Some fell backward, others screamed, though their voices never reached her ears. To them, she seemed like a living mountain rising into the sky. A woman perhaps 150 meters tall, perhaps more. They couldn't even measure her. A human, but not human at all. And she moved. From their perspective, her footsteps hit like earthquakes. Pebbles leapt, cars toppled, and people were thrown to the ground as she took a calm step forward to look around. Gwen felt only a slight resistance under her shoe, a faint difference in texture. She looked down, still unaware that the green beneath her was the crushed remains of rooftops, parks, and narrow streets, flattened into a strange patchwork pattern beneath her sole. Then she moved her foot again, and that was when panic truly erupted. Not far from her, just beyond her field of vision, lay another town. They had seen the dust cloud bloom in the distance like an exploding mist, and now they could see her. That colossal shadow, her green silhouette blotting out the sun, her shoe lifting and aiming directly at them. Her soul descended over the horizon like a dark solar eclipse. People ran, cars screeched, windows rattled. No one could escape in time. Gwen took the step. She heard no panic, no screams. For her, it was just another step in a strange landscape. But far below, in the town swallowed by the shadow of her descending shoe, the world was tearing apart. And she still had no idea that she was the cause. Chapter 3. The world's explosion of fear. Gwen moved forward with calm, untroubled steps, each motion sending a soft, rhythmic tremor through the landscape. She didn't notice the distant, muffled thunder of panic beneath her, only the wind in her hair, the sun on her skin, and the strange, liberating feeling of being free in a way she had never felt before. But far below her, the world was boiling. The military had mobilized everything they could. Alarms wailed in bases kilometers away, soldiers shouted orders, and helicopter rotors hammered the air while fighter jets climbed skyward, forming a small swarm around the colossal woman. From their perspective, her body filled the horizon. Her legs were living towers, her torso a wall of skin, and her face was so high above that most aircraft had to push their engines to the limit just to get close enough to aim. They opened fire. Bullets struck her skin like tiny sparks, but Gwen felt nothing, not a sting, not a tingle. She heard only a faint buzzing, irritatingly familiar. She squinted. Are those flies? Hundreds of meters below her, pilots fought to maintain formation as they watched her gigantic eyes focus on them. Her pupil alone was larger than their helicopter. Being seen by her felt like standing before a living goddess. She raised her hand slowly. A rush of air struck them as she flicked her fingers to shoo them away. Lazy and relaxed for her, but a hurricane blast for them. Helicopters spun wildly, some tumbling out of formation, others flung upward like dry leaves. A few veered desperately closer to her face, trying to escape the violent turbulence from her hand. That was when they drifted too close to her lips. Gwen inhaled. For her, it was just a normal breath, but for them, it was a massive, invisible tidal wave. Air pressure seized them, dragging them forward, and suddenly several aircraft were pulled straight toward her mouth. Warning sirens screamed inside the cockpits as pilots slammed their fists on the emergency release. Escape capsules fired. Parachutes burst open in frantic desperation. But the pull was too strong. Tiny human bodies were sucked straight between her lips, their shouts drowned in the warm, humid roar of her breath. The parachutes collapsed like wet paper as they hit the moisture of her mouth. They landed on her tongue, a glistening, living plain stretching beneath them like a smooth purple landscape. It shifted, pulsed, pushing them around like specks of dust. They slid backward, deeper, as Gwen absent-mindedly closed her lips, as if she were simply moistening them. The pilots could hear her heartbeat like thunder rolling through a cavern. Down on the ground, things weren't much better. Tank columns tried to fire to distract her, but every time she set her foot down, their aim was torn apart by the raw shock of the impact. Soldiers shouted commands, screamed for evacuation, but roads split apart from the deep craters, her weight pressed into the earth. Every town she approached could feel her long before they saw her. The vibrations in the soil, glass rattling, cars rolling gently toward the gutters. People watching the sky darken because her silhouette blocked the sun. They saw her foot descend over them like a dark dome. Step by step she advanced. Houses collapsed like sandcastles, cars were crushed flat into metal sheets, and streets vanished beneath her soles. And still she walked peacefully, without anger, without any intention to destroy. Just a giant woman taking a stroll. But for the people below, every step was an apocalypse. And Gwen still hadn't realized what she had become. She felt only a faint, pleasant resonance through her body, as if the world finally fit her. More towns now looked up at her in pure panic, knowing her next step could fall anywhere. And Gwen lifted her foot again, unaware, curious, and still convinced that all of this was just some strange side effect of the teleportation. Chapter 4. When the Truth Looks Back. Gwen froze mid-step. Something flickered far below her. Tiny, rapid flashes of light, as if the ground itself were trying to send signals into her eyes. She frowned, leaned forward, but the lights were still far too small for her to make sense of. She slowly lowered herself into a crouch. The earth trembled for kilometers in every direction. Windows shattered. People were thrown from their feet by the pressure wave as her enormous shadow rolled over them. Her knees hit the ground with a thunderous impact, shaking the region like a minor earthquake. And then her face came closer, and closer, and closer. From below, the town's perspective. People had taken shelter between cars, inside shops, beneath collapsed roofs. Some stood frozen in the open streets, unable to move as her massive face descended toward them. Her eyes, two gigantic green suns, expanded in their view until they filled everything. Every eyelash was a black branch. Her breath was a warm gust that sent signs clattering and plastic bags skittering away. She sees us, a man screamed, voice breaking. Maybe we can communicate. Maybe she'll stop. Another shouted, waving his arms desperately. Others dragged children back, while some simply stood trembling, too terrified even to hope. There was no doubt that she could see them now. Her face hovered only a few meters above their town, like a pale rising moon. With a single finger, she could have covered half the city. Back to Gwen. Gwen went rigid. Her eyes widened, and her entire expression froze as the truth finally slammed into her. Cities, houses, roads, tiny people, smaller than ants. All of it right at her feet. No. What have I done? She whispered, her voice rolling across the land like thunder. She clapped a hand over her mouth. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Her apology blasted people to the ground like a storm wind. Even her remorse was too enormous for them to withstand. She stood up quickly, far too quickly. The ground collapsed under her soles. Several buildings crumbled from the force of her movement, and her foot swung dangerously close to areas where survivors were still running. Gwen was panicking. Her thoughts raced. I have to make myself smaller. I have to stop this. I have to fix it. I can't stay like this. She lifted her hands and began muttering incantations. Runes ignited in the air, hot and glowing, gathering magic around her body. Help me. Make me smaller. Come on, she whispered. Heat rose, a bright aura wrapped around her. From below, their reaction. People in several nearby towns saw it clearly. The gigantic woman began to glow, her body tensed, her outline sharpened. And then, she grew. No! She's getting bigger! Someone screamed. Run! Officers shouted, even though everyone knew there was nowhere to run. Her shoes expanded first. More buildings were crushed instantly as the widening soles rolled over them. Roads vanished beneath her spreading shadow, while fresh footprints sank kilometers deep into the earth. Even mountain slopes began to crumble under the pressure of her size. All people could do was look upward, into a sky now almost entirely filled by her. She arched her back, voice rising in terror. Back to Gwen. No, stop! I'm getting bigger, it's the wrong spell, stop! She tried again. More magic, more runes, more desperate words. But each spell only made the heat stronger, and her body surged larger still, as if her magic had decided to amplify her mistake instead of correcting it. Her ankle scraped the side of a mountain, shaving it off. Cities disappeared beneath her heels like powder. Rivers altered their paths as her sheer mass reshaped the terrain. Gwen pressed her palms to her temples. I can't stop it. I'm only getting bigger. What do I do? Her voice made entire regions vibrate. She was now so enormous that even her toenail was larger than the cities she had unknowingly crushed earlier. And the growth continued. Chapter 5. The Woman Who Covered the Sky. Gwen grew, not in bursts, not in trembling surges, but in a steady, relentless flood of size, as if the universe itself were pouring raw power into her body. Every breath made her bigger. Every heartbeat doubled her reach. Her growth could no longer be measured in meters, but in cities, in countries, in continents. She could see it now. And the whole world could see her. Satellites captured her form, but no camera could contain her. Live broadcasts showed only fragments. An eye larger than a lake. A forehead stretching across the sky. A portion of her lips blocking out the sun. People in every nation looked upward and saw her face as if a deity had broken through the clouds. Planes fell out of the sky because her expanding body tore the air currents apart. The oceans pulled away from their shores from the shock waves of her growth. The earth groaned beneath her as if the planet itself struggled to hold her weight. Gwen lowered herself. Or rather, she collapsed slowly onto all fours because her center of gravity shifted faster than she could adjust. Her palms slammed down on continents, flattening them like wet newspaper. Mountain ranges crumpled beneath her knees. Her hair fell in titanic dark sheets across vast regions of Europe. And billions of people could now see her face. Her eyes filled the heavens like two green moons. Her warm breath carried storms with it. When she blinked, entire horizons darkened and brightened again. Silence consumed the world. Everyone looked up. Everyone understood she had grown beyond what their planet could endure. Gwen tried to breathe calmly, but even that was a disaster. When she inhaled, her colossal mouth drew in entire atmospheric streams. Wind speeds shot to hurricane levels. Houses tore from their foundations. Millions felt the air drag at their bodies, as if the entire world were being pulled toward her. Coastal cities, and even those far inland, were dragged several meters forward as the ground groaned under the strain. In some places, people, trees, and cars were ripped off the ground and pulled straight toward her lips, vanishing in a nightmare moment of helpless screaming before disappearing into the dark cavern of her mouth. Howling wind, collapsing buildings, and then nothing. Gwen gasped in terror. "Stop! Stop! I can't control it anymore!" Her voice wasn't sound. It was pressure. A wave that sent the entire atmosphere rippling. Cloud systems tore apart. Lightning struck without storms, pure chaos shredding the air. And still she grew. Her hands could no longer rest on the earth without cracking it. Her knees lifted entire continents off the surface. The oceans churned in titanic spirals, pulled by the new gravity her body was creating. Every nerve in her screamed for control. But the magic inside her had broken loose, become something living, something larger than she was, something that knew only one direction. More. Bigger. More. She felt the planet's surface as a faint tingling beneath her skin, as if all of Earth had shrunk into a small, trembling cushion beneath her body. She lost all sense of scale. Everything was too small, too fragile, too distant from the world she once understood. "Please, forgive me," she whispered, and her whisper sent storms sweeping across continents. But even her own thoughts were drowning beneath the growth. The magic pushed her outward, towards something larger than the world itself. Gwen understood it. If she didn't stop the growth now, she would soon be bigger than the Earth. Chapter 6. When the Earth collided with her. Gwen kept growing without pause. The heat of the magic pumped through her body like the core of a star, and her size increased so quickly that the landscape shrank beneath her with every heartbeat. Her short reddish hair clung close to her head, swept back by the violent air currents her expanding body created. Yet it remained short, exactly as she was. It was no longer a single region that could see her. Now the entire world could. Satellites could capture only fragments. Her colossal cheek, an eye filling the entire frame, her forehead, her shoulders blotting out half the atmosphere. News broadcasts cut off mid-sentence as a shadow rolled over entire continents. People looked up, and instead of clouds and sunlight, they saw her body. Her legs stretched longer than mountain ranges. Her arms could sweep through skyscrapers like dust. The growth forced her onto all fours, not because she wanted to, but because the earth could no longer hold steady beneath her weight. Her palms flattened continents. Her knees pushed entire cities into the sea as easily as a hand brushing sand across a beach. Her face dropped closer to the surface, so close that billions of people now saw it at once. Her eyes were two massive green spheres in the sky. Her nose loomed over cities like a rounded mountain. Her short hair cast sharp, vast shadows across whole nations. People fell to their knees in pure terror and awe. Then Gwen breathed, just one slow inhale, but for the planet, it became a mighty storm. Air rushed toward her mouth with hurricane force. Cities felt the pull, trees bent, cars slid forward, people clung to anything they could grab. Some were lifted from the ground and hurled toward her lips like tiny specks, disappearing into a cavern of warm darkness and roaring air. Houses groaned, rooftops tore loose, entire neighborhoods shifted like toy pieces pushed across a board. Gwen let out a strangled gasp. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" she cried, her voice ripping through the atmosphere like a cosmic blast. Storms formed instantly. Clouds burst apart from the shock. She lifted her head for a moment. But the growth continued. Her arms stretched longer than the oceans. Her torso spanned the curvature of the planet. Her shadow soon covered the entire Earth at once. People could no longer see her whole face, just pieces of it, one eye over one continent, her nose over another, her mouth arching across the sky like the horizon itself. I can't control it anymore, she screamed, voice shaking the world's core. The magic inside her had become a living force that refused to stop. Every spell she tried was overridden by a growth that now seemed infinite. She felt the planet becoming small, like a cushion under her palm, like something that no longer fit her size at all. Gwen dug her fingers into the ground and shut her eyes tightly. I don't want to destroy you! I don't! Stop! But the growth didn't listen. It pulled her higher, larger, mightier, and the earth grew smaller and smaller beneath her.
Chapter 7. The Fall of the Multiverse. Gwen felt it before she saw it, a violent, deep rumble through the planet's core. Earth could no longer hold her. Her growth pushed against the edges of continents, forcing tectonic plates apart like thin sheets of paper. Every time she breathed, she grew. Every time her heart beat, she grew even more. At last, she could no longer stay on the planet's surface. It cracked beneath her like shattered porcelain. Gwen stood up, slowly, but even the slowest motion sent colossal shockwaves blasting through the sky and atmosphere. The planet quaked, enormous fractures tearing open beneath her feet. Rivers changed course. Mountain peaks collapsed. Entire continents slid into each other in twisted, chaotic formations. And then she became too large. Her weight escaped the planet's grasp. She lifted upward, not because she flew, but because she had become so enormous that Earth's gravity could no longer hold her. She rose like a balloon that had grown too massive for its tether. Below her, now far below, Earth grew smaller. Quietly, terrifyingly, irreversibly smaller. People who survived in distant regions saw her drifting upward. From their perspective, she was no longer a woman, but a new sky. A living planet of flesh and muscle growing faster than they could comprehend. And she kept growing, past planetary size. Earth, once larger than her, now shrank in comparison. Soon it was like a ball next to her hip, then like a stone beside her leg, then like a speck of dust against her vast body. The Earth began sliding toward her. Not because she moved, but because she grew so quickly that the distance between them vanished in real time. It wasn't a fall. It was her growth-consuming space itself. At last, it touched her. With a silent, merciless pressure, Earth was pushed against the fabric of her pants, crushed against her thigh like a fragile glass orb. Light flashed from the planet's fractures as the entire world splintered into dust and glowing debris. Gwen saw it happen. Her home, her world. The planet where all her memories lived, crushed against her own body. No, 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 she screamed, her voice so immense that the sound waves shook space itself. But it was too late. Only pulverized rock, dust, and melted oceans drifted down her clothes like ashes. Her world was gone. But the growth did not stop. It hadn't even reached its peak. Gwen now grew at a rate beyond the laws of physics. Her body stretched through the solar system in seconds. Jupiter and Saturn drifted past her like tiny marbles. The asteroid belt dissolved into glittering sparks that barely tickled her skin. Then came the sun. A glowing sphere of plasma, the star that had kept her world alive, drew closer as she continued to expand. She felt its heat brush her skin, but only as mild warmth, like a summer day. She realized it with a shiver. She was bigger than the sun. It hovered before her like a small golden orb she could cradle in her palm if she reached out. Her growth didn't stop there. She expanded past the size of the sun, past the solar system, past the galactic core, and onward, her body stretching across the universe like a living wall of flesh, heat, and pure existence. Stars became tiny sparks against her face. Galaxies became spirals she could barely feel. The darkness of the universe filled with her presence, as if she replaced the space between everything. I can't stop it, she whispered. Her whisper made galaxy clusters tremble. I'm becoming bigger than everything. And the universe around her shrank in her presence, unable to contain her any longer. Chapter 7. When one woman's growth strikes billions of universes. Highly detailed, with both the universe's perspective and the experience inside her mouth. Gwen was now growing so fast that the borders of reality shattered like thin glass. Her body pushed through space, through the fabric of dimensions, through everything that had once defined existence. And as she grew out of her own universe, she grew into others. The multiverse reacts. There were countless universes out there, each with its own galaxies, planets, civilizations, and beings. Billions of worlds lived their daily lives, unaware of her existence. But then the shadow came, first as a dark wall on the horizon, then as a skin-toned, living storm, finally as something no reality could comprehend, a colossal face larger than their entire cosmos. Gwen tore into a universe like a warm knife through wax. Her gigantic eye filled the heavens of thousands of worlds. Stars dimmed beside her pupil, and even solar systems saw reflections of themselves inside her iris. Some universes saw only pieces of her. A gigantic palm passing by and crushing their galaxies like dust. An elbow brushing space and triggering supernovae. Her knee pressing into the void like a new, overwhelming planet. Other universes suffered far worse, the universes that came too close. Some lay so near her expanding body that they were pressed directly against her, caught between her skin and the very fabric of space-time. In one universe, an entire spiral galaxy shattered against her hip. In another, a planet slammed into her cheek and disappeared in a burst of stardust. There was no malice in her movements, only the unstoppable growth that made her a cosmic force of nature. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds saw her filling the space around them. Some prayed, some screamed, some gazed upward, frozen between terror and awe. The silent death of universes in her breath. And then there were the ones that entered her mouth. Gwen tried to breathe slowly, but even a gentle inhale became a multiversal hurricane. Entire universes were torn from their dimensional anchors and dragged toward her lips. From the universe's perspective, the sky darkened, not from night, but from a gigantic mouth, so vast that stars disappeared inside it. Winds shoved planets out of orbit. People were lifted off their worlds. Entire continents slid toward the brink of existence. And then, whop, their world was pulled past her lips, side her mouth. Reality was thrown into warm, humid darkness. A whole universe crashed down onto her tongue. Planets burst like grains of sand against the glistening living surface. Stars fizzled like sparks in the wet heat. Her tongue moved, a massive, soft, muscular landscape pushing everything backward. Starfleets, space stations, the remnants of entire civilizations slid across its texture like droplets. Warmth, moisture. The deafening sound of her swallow rippling through existence like thunder. And then everything was consumed. A single gulp, greater than a supernova, sent entire universes down her throat and into a body now larger than all creation. Gwen sees it happen? No. Stop! I don't want to hurt you! Gwen cried, but her voice toppled multiple universes like an earthquake through dimensions. She tried to hold her breath, but her growth continued, and every cell in her body pulled in air, space, stars, and planets like a cosmic tide. Her short hair swept through the multiverse like shimmering red curtains, darkening whole realities in passing. I'm growing through everything! She sobbed as universe after universe vanished beneath her like specks of dust. And the growth continued. No end, no boundary. She now grew faster than light, faster than time, faster than universes could be born. Gwen was on the path to becoming larger than the multiverse itself. Chapter 8, Between Dream and Doomsday. Gwen now floated in a void that could no longer be called a universe. She was larger than galaxies, larger than timelines, larger than the very concept of existence. Everything that had ever been, planets, stars, dimensions, civilizations, life, had become part of her, absorbed into her endless immensity. There was nothing outside her anymore. Only her and a cosmic darkness with nothing left to contain except her body. She was alone in a space with no borders. Her heartbeat thundered like collisions between galaxy clusters. Her breathing created new ripples in space-time. Her skin was dusted with the remnants of universes, glittering like stardust across a living sky. She squeezed her eyes shut. Stop. Please stop. Let it disappear. Let it be a dream. Be a dream. Be a dream. She shook her head, and the motion alone caused the remnants of the multiverse to crack like shattered glass. She wanted it gone. She wanted to wake up. She wanted her world, her life, her room, and then the light came. Not explosive, not cosmic, but gentle, like morning sunlight through curtains. She wakes Gwen inhaled, and the air was mild and quiet. She opened her eyes. She was lying in her bed. Her soft blanket curled around her. Her pillow was cool. Sunlight warmed her face in that familiar, ordinary way she knew so well. No spatial distortions, no trembling universes. no cosmic force tearing at her mind or body. She froze, terrified for a moment, touched her arm, her face, her short hair. Everything was normal. She rose quickly, half in panic, half in desperate hope, and turned on the TV. Weather reports, sports, politics. Not a single word about a giant woman, not a single hint of a world-ending catastrophe. She rushed to the window and flung the curtain aside. There were people, cars, a neighbor cycling past, a dog barking, clouds drifting the way they always did. The world was completely normal. Nothing destroyed, no sky filled by her shadow, no planet collapsing. She dropped to her knees, pressed a hand to her chest, and drew a deep, shaking breath. It was a dream, she whispered. It must have been a dream. And for the first time since it all began, she felt relief, a warm, quiet wave washing all the terror away. She stood, walked over, and began packing her bag. She wanted to go out for a walk, to feel the real world again, to be normal. She grabbed the door handle, opened it, and stepped out into the day, unaware that her dream had been so real that even the universes on the far side of reality still whispered her name. The end.